In this video I will be talking about how to modify your subscriber PHP script and testmail.html file in order to create your first subscription box. Let's start from subscriber PHP file. We choose it and select the open with command and select the text edit program. It's a plain text editor to edit it. This is our PHP script. We skip the first line, we don't need it, and we navigate to this line. Before we start to modify this line, I want you to take a look at those lines which start from double slashes. These are comments. You basically don't modify them, you just read the text which is after the slashes. It just explains what the next line of code does and what you need to do in order to modify it right. In this line of code, you specify an email address you want your subscribe requests to be sent to, and you modify it here. For instance, if your email address is john@gmail.com, you should type it here, like this. And all the subscribe and unsubscribe requests will be sent to john@gmail.com. Now let's proceed to the next line of code. In this line of code, you specify a web page which will be presented to the user once he clicks the submit button. And this page should be entered here. Let's say you have a thanks.html page on your site, which is www.yourwebsite.com, and once we modify it, it should look like this. Now once the user presses the submit button, this page www.yourwebsite.com/thanks.html will be opened. Now let's proceed to the next line of code. We skip all those commands and we go to this line of code. And this line of code actually lists all the required fields on your web form. Web form actually may contain a lot of different fields, but some fields in the form should be required. For instance, name of a person who subscribes to your mailing list should be a required field, and email address should also be a required field, and action is also required. I don't want any other fields to be required, so I modify this list and remove this field and leave only these three fields required. Now it means that if on your web form recipient leaves name, email address or action empty, the web form after pressing the submit button will generate an error, and the next line of code specifies the error message. You modify this part of the line and change it to something you wish your users to see. Before you change it, pay attention that you can actually use HTML tags in the message in order to get a better look. You can use line breaks and font modifiers, font style and color modifiers. You should also use the %s placeholder in your message in order to reference the field that was left empty. This %s modifier will be replaced with the field name which was left empty. And let's change it to something. Let's say I don't want to use HTML tags and I want a simple message. And this is our message. Now once one of those fields is left empty by the user and once the submit button is pressed, our user will see this simple message like for instance the field email address is a required field, please enter anything into it, and if recipient name is left empty, then the field recipient name is a required field, please enter anything into it message will be shown. Let's proceed to the next line. We skip the comments and go to the line. In most of cases we don't need to modify this line, and this is the reason why I don't even want to cover this thing in the video. We just skip it and save the file. We finished with this file because we're not supposed to edit anything which goes beyond this line. Close the text editor with subscriber PHP and switch to the next file. This is our HTML file with subscribe web form. In order to edit it with text edit, we need to rename it to a txt file. We just add .txt extension to it, and in this box we use the use txt button, and now it's a txt file. We can right click it and open with text edit. And in the text edit we see the content of this file. This file basically has one declaration of web form which goes between the form tag and the closing form tag, and you modify everything which is in between. The first line of code tells us that our subscriber PHP script should be used once the user presses the submit button. We don't modify this line, we go to the next one. The next line adds email address field to your web form. This first part of the line is a display label that will be shown to the user next to the email address box, and this part, email, is the name of this field which will be passed to the subscriber PHP script. We want to collect email addresses on our subscribe form, so we leave this line as it is. Now the next line is name. The display text which will be used for this field is name, and the name of this field is name. So this thing will be presented to the user next to the name box, and this thing will be passed to subscriber PHP as recipient name, as field name. We want to collect recipient names, so we leave this field as it is. Now the next field is mailing list name. Let's say I don't want this field, so I basically just remove it. And if you wish to collect other information for your recipients, let's say zip codes, add a new field. You can just copy the previous line of code and replace display label with, let's say, zip code, and name of field, let's name it zip. And once user enters the zip code, the zip will be passed to subscriber PHP, and the name of this field will be zip. Next line passes action to our subscriber PHP script. We can modify this part of the line. If it's a subscribe form, leave it as it is, subscribe. But if it's unsubscribe form, change it to unsubscribe. But since we are working on a subscribe form, I want to leave it subscribe. The next line of code is your submit button. In this example, it's just a basic submit button with a submit label inside it. And I want to leave it as it is, because it's just a sample. And we want to save this file and close it. Now we need to rename this file back to .html. So we delete the txt extension and choose the use HTML button, and we end up with an HTML file. Now all you need to do is to upload these two files to your website, to the root folder, so that you could open this testmail.html page and present it to the end user so that he could enter his name, email address, and press the submit button. Every website usually comes with a file manager. You can use to upload files to your website. You can use this file manager to upload these two files, or you can use FTP or SCP access if it's available. And this is it. I think I covered everything. Thanks for listening.